John Lowe's here of Lesk Archery Adventures. Serious testing, successful hunting. Today I'm going to be testing another head by Trifecta. If you followed me in recent years, you know I've become a big fan of Trifecta broadheads since they came onto the scene here just recently. I've used their broadheads in the field. They've performed extremely well. I've taken hogs with them. I even took a water buffalo with one down in Argentina a few years ago. They've just done a fantastic job. And now in 2026, they've come out with kind of a new lineup using a titanium ferrule, and I'll go through that, but really cool broadheads. I like their broadheads so much that I reached out to them a couple years ago when I first started testing them to see if they would give me a discount code, and they did. So if you use Lusk10 when you're purchasing broadheads from their website, Lusk10, you save 10% on any of their broadheads, and they have quite an array of broadhead choices there, so it's a good savings. But today I'm going to be testing this 100 grain model using my regiment for 2026. And if you're not familiar with that regiment, please check out the video I posted earlier this year called 2026 Broadhead Test Process. There's a number of changes I've made this year, and I keep getting questions and comments that are based on clearly people not understanding I've made these changes. So please watch it. It won't take you long. It's just a few minutes, and it'll catch you up to speed in what changes I've made for this year. And for all the vertical bow shooting, I'm using my Elite Eon Compound bow. For the crossbows, I'm shooting my new Ravin LR XBow, which I'm really loving. And for the arrows, I'm using Bishop Archery arrows. Let's zoom in here, check out this blender, and then put it to the test. Here's a good look at the blender. Man, it spins very well. Really tight tolerances and great craftsmanship, like all Trifecta broadheads. Let's break it down a bit. First of all, with the materials. So it's got this titanium ferrule that they started using here in 2026, I believe, or toward the end of 2025. And then the blades are 420 stainless steel blades, both the main blade as well as this front blade. The tip in this blender model, this one here, is 1/2 inch wide, so it's a cutting diameter of 1/2 inch here, and then in this main blade has a cutting diameter of 1 1/4 inches. So the total cut is 1.75 inches, and the total length beyond the end of the arrow is 1.39 inches. So pretty short as well. The thicknesses of the blades are something to be respected. This leading blade has a thickness of 0.060, which is really impressive for a bleeder type blade. That's double the thickness of most broadheads' main blades. And then this main blade is 0.080 inches thick. Man, that's a nice thick blade. So it looks pretty vented, and you may think, oh, it's not very strong. It certainly is vented, but when you have that thick of a blade, that makes up for a lot of venting, I'll tell you that. They're a single bevel. Both the blades are single bevel, right bevel, sharpened, and I believe they're going to be coming out with a left bevel in the future. I'm not sure if they have that at this point or not. I do believe it's planned. And one of the cool things about this broadhead is within all their fixed blades now, with this titanium ferrule that they have, you can interchange four different main blades. You have this one, then you have a solid one, and then you have the tank buster, which is a 1.5 inch cutting diameter vented, as well as solid. And then you have two different leading blades, this 1/2 inch one and then a 1 inch one. So you can mix and match to really be a perfect broadhead for anything on the planet. I mean, in any setup. I mean, you really can mix and match it that way, and that's just a nice benefit to have, that kind of modularity. I've taken a number of hogs with these Trifecta heads, with this one in particular, the older model. This is a little newly updated, but and I even took a water buffalo in Argentina with the 125 grain version, and man, it performed really well. These heads are just something, and they're especially noteworthy for their rotation. Just the shortness of the blades, the thickness of the blades, the bevel angle of 40 degrees is to maximize rotation rotation and maximize durability. It doesn't maximize the felt sharpness, but it does maximize those other things. And man, from my testing in the past, this one has rotated really well. It's why they're now calling it the blender, because it rotates really well. And they've said that the vented model, the blender, rotates even more effectively than does the non-vented model, the tank it's called, because the medium can just kind of go right in there like a blender blade. It can go right through there and just zip right through. And they've seen that happen within animals and really twirl around like that, which is pretty impressive. The price of these is $20 per head, but you can use my discount code LUSK10 to save 10%. Really look forward to putting this head to the test and seeing how it performs. With my Elite Eon Compound bow, it just clipped the 10 ring. And out of the Ravin at 450 feet per second, it got the bullseye. It took 153 grams of force to cut through the wire, which is a 10 on a 10-point scale, plus a proportional bonus of 0.47 for being under the threshold of 200. It penetrated 8 inches. I know it doesn't look like that, the way the ruler lines up with it, the lens, but that is the penetration, 8 inches, and that's an 8.89 on a 10-point scale. It took an additional 35 grams of force to cut through the wire, which is a 9.3 on a 10-point scale. And it'll get an additional 2-point bonus for both the sharpness and edge retention being under the threshold of 200. It penetrated through 61 layers, which is an 8.71 on a 10-point scale. It rotated 120 degrees at 12 inches. That's why it's called the blender. Man, and that's within gel. Gel really restricts rotation. Though it's consistent, it's a good way to gauge or compare one broadhead to another. But within an animal, it's going to rotate a lot more than that. Here's another view from the top, just showing the rotation, that wound channel. Man, that just looks wicked cool. It's in pristine condition after the 3 shots through the MDF. And it's still in very good shape after the 2 shots through the steel plate. Just got a little bit of edge chatter. And you can see the holes here, really nice S-cut holes from the single bevel rotation, and really wide cuts to those blades too. That's going to make a nice wound channel. Here's the blender after all the durability testing, and man, it just held together extremely well. Through the MDF, there was no damage whatsoever. Through the steel plate, a little bit of edge chatter, just a little bit on these blades. You could probably see it there. And then into the cinder block, man, it just penetrated very well. That main tip held together well, got a little bit of a bend to it, and that's just because of that rotation. I mean, it's its blessing is it rotates really well, but when you're sticking into cinder block, it's kind of a curse. But even with that, it held together overall really well. So very impressive durability for such a vented design as this, especially. So what'd you think of the blender? Man, I've tested this broadhead a lot, okay, in its previous iterations, and this is really similar, and this is just a winner of a design. It did well in every area. The only area it got slightly docked was its cut size. Though even with that, I mean, it's got a pretty solid cut size. And those thick blades and that rotation, wow, incredible rotation. Better than any broadhead I've ever tested. That makes up for what it lacks in the cut size. But it got an extremely high score, one of the highest fixed blade scores I've ever given out. It's just a winner of a broadhead. And so, man, you ought to consider using it pretty much for anything, especially for lighter setups or larger animals where you're really trying to maximize the penetration. It just does really well. But really for any animal on the planet, I think it would do a great job. But you check out the score sheet and see how it performed in the areas that matter to you the most and see if it might be a good fit for you. And stay tuned for the overall cumulative score as well as the corresponding Lusk grade. And also stay tuned for a list of all the discount codes I can offer, like Lusk10 for all the trifectas to save 10%. But there's many other discount codes in this list as well. It's going to come up in a slide, and that's just to help you save some money in the field. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you next time.